Greetings, traveler. Have you ever had the experience of receiving a message on social media or an email from a recruiter, a headhunter, HR person from a game company who tells you that they're so interested in your profile and you would make such a good candidate for so-and-so position, only to discover later on that they had no position in mind and they in fact never took a look at your profile? I think this happens a lot, but I think there is a way to bridge the gap between us people who work in the games industry and people who try to place us in positions like that. So my name is Santos. I've been working in the games industry for over 13 years now, and I've had my fair share of conversations and interviews and everything in between that has to do with recruiters. And if you don't know what a recruiter is, basically it's a person who either works for a company that specifically looks for people to place in open roles in other companies, specifically in the games industry in this case, or they might be working directly for a games company and they're trying to find people to place in game designer roles, engineer roles, sound artists roles, and so on. So where does the complexity come in this case and what can we do about it? So like I mentioned, the problem with these conversations very often is that the person doesn't know enough about games or the games industry or you as a candidate, and because that's the case, the placement process and the interviews are largely a waste of time. I mean, you can still gather experience from it, but these interviews shouldn't have happened in the first place because it wasn't a good match to begin with. And if somebody took the time to look at the position and the project and the candidate and so on, that would be very obvious. So today I want to share 3 things that you can look for in your conversations with recruiters that have personally helped me over the years, and it changed completely the way I interact with that type of professional, and I've had lots of success, I suppose, in my career because of that. So let's just jump in. Number 1, when you're talking to a recruiter, or when I was talking to a recruiter, I started realizing that if that person knows about games, or more specifically knows about game development and game companies and the games industry, then our conversations would be way higher quality. We could talk about specific positions and specific companies or famous games that these companies made and how I would fit into that process or that role or that company, and our conversations would be so much more on point, rather than speaking in general terms about my background and my interests and so on, which is, it's not a bad conversation, but unfortunately it's irrelevant. The only relevant point here is this person good for this position? That is the point. My personal hopes and dreams and interests are, a bit far from that. So that's definitely one thing that if you can identify in a recruiter, I found that definitely helps a lot. The second is how much they seem to know about the role. So I've had many people contact me and say that they have a great role for so-and-so project in this company, only to find out that the role had nothing to do with my background. And in fact, they didn't even know what the role was about, right? So what are the day-to-day tasks of that role? Is it a game designer role? Is it an engineer role? Is it a playtester role? They just said, oh, we have a great game position role for you. That's not good. That's not good. It needs to be more specific, and if someone comes to approach you with a great offer because of your amazing background, then challenge them on that by any means. So that's the second thing I learned. Absolutely challenge any message like that comes to you and see if what they're saying seems to be true, right? If the role does seem interesting and the day-to-day tasks are something you would be happy doing, then of course it makes sense to continue the conversation. But if that's not the case, then perhaps you can move on and they can move on too. So the last thing that I learned is that timing is important, right? And of course, all of us want to work on our dream project and do our dream job and have lots of fun making the best games we can. But sometimes the timing is just not right. So let's say you want to make, I don't know, a very realistic horror action game, but none of the companies out there seem to be making that at the moment. But who knows, maybe in 6 months or maybe in a year or so, there will be a company that makes just that. So how do recruiters come into this situation? If you do find a person, and I found personally that when I do meet someone that meets the previous 2 points that I spoke about, so they seem to know about games and game development and so on. They also are gamers perhaps. They also seem to know the industry. They understand my personal preferences to a good level. Then perhaps not immediately, but as I kept contact with people like that over months and years, and we were on good terms, they did reach out to me eventually and say, you know, I think you would be interested in this position based on what you said to me and based on our previous conversations. So because of the 2 points that I paid attention to, we managed to connect on a good level as gamers, first of all, and then talk about game development and what I want to do in the future. And because of that conversation, because it was real for us, because the person I was talking to was also interested in this sort of thing and wasn't a generic salesman who might as well be selling chicken, we had that connection, and that connection wasn't valuable only for one conversation, but it was valuable for both of our careers going forward. So that point was very important for me. It made me realize that despite what I want to do right now at work or what kind of project I want to work on, timing is definitely an issue. The industry goes through phases, games go through phases, I go through phases. So relaxing a little bit and letting time flow in the way it does and picking the right moment to make your move, at least in my case, had a very good effect on my career. And over time, I did manage to find the positions I was interested in and eventually gain enough experience and enough knowledge and know how to start doing these things on my own, create a game project on my own. So I don't know what your experience has been with recruiters so far. If you have a positive or negative opinion on them, please let me know down below because I would like to know too. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, have fun.